All right, welcome to the Aligned Ambitions show. There is just this thing about connecting to YouTube. I got to figure this out. And think after hundreds of episodes that I've done live that I would have it figured out. No. Anyways, Aligned Ambitions, that's why we're here today. I'm Larissa Russell of Heart Centered Academy. And today, Aligned Ambitions show, if you're a woman starting or growing your online heart-centered business, and you're wanting to do things differently, you feel icky about the manipulative marketing practices and are ready to align your business with your ethics, values, and life goals, then stick around for this conversation. Today, I have with me Sarah Jolly Jarvis of, oh my Lord, I went to put your business name in, Sarah, and we're live. You know, this is how I do.
You can, and underneath,
yes.
under the you can umbrella, you've got selling without sleeves, you've got women's wealth formula, so you've got different ways of getting help.
And then, of course, I didn't put it in there, and then this is where we end up on live. Sarah's a business mentor, speaker, and Amazon international best-selling author. She empowers female entrepreneurs to achieve phenomenal success online without sacrificing what matters most. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for rolling with it, because that's what we do here. We are not about perfect. We're about showing up and doing the thing. So yes. But thank you for being here. And I'm actually excited to talk about your book, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Mm-hmm. I would like you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you ended up doing what you do.
Okay, so that's a long one. So basically, my background has been sales and marketing for a number of years. I was in the sort of pharmaceutical industry, so it was quite a corporate kind of setting. I think that kind of helped me because I wasn't able to use some of the tactics that you sometimes see being used. So we had to play it by the rules. The pharmaceutical industry in the UK is really highly regulated, and there's so many things you can't say. It's not like you guys, you've got it all over the telly and stuff. But yeah, you just can't do that. And so I kind of, I had a really good kind of start with sales. Obviously, it was something that I was always quite a persuasive individual, people pointed out on a regular basis. And I do enjoy talking to people and getting to know people. And so that, coupled with the fact that I hated sitting in an office, and it felt like I was just it felt like I had to be present on that seat, no matter how good anything was or wasn't, as far as my work, for that set amount of time. And then that bottom could then leave that seat, and that was it. It was like, tick that box. And I just felt like, God, there has to be another way. And I was actually supporting the sales team on a placement year from my university degree, which was business and public policy. And I was like, you know what? They look like they're having more fun because they don't actually have to sit at these seats all day long. And that was what got me thinking. Like, I was so anti the kind of path that this was taking me down that I almost didn't go back and finish my degree, because I was like, why do I want a degree in business if this is where it's going to lead me is into this seat in this little, we don't have booths, but we have like our little desk spaces. Anyway, so I went back and I thought, you know what, okay, this sales thing. And I ended up getting taught sales because my university degree, despite being business, did not include any sales training whatsoever. And so I was taught by the recruitment agent how to do sales for my interview. And I landed into that pharmaceutical industry and medical devices world. For fast forward 15 years, a bit of a gap for traveling around the world with my now husband. And I am in a product manager job. So I'm using the sales team to sell my product. They're one of my routes to market. I'm training them. I've been out as a senior salesperson training people. And I'm there a bit like, well, I've then decided to have a family. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'll be fine. I'll come back and I'll work 5 days a week, and there'll be a nursery and it'll all be brilliant. And then everyone kept going, you'll feel differently. Do you think you'll come back full time? And I was like, yeah, I will come back full time. And then my daughter was born. And as I detail in the first chapter of my book, then everything changed. And I was like, there is no way this little thing is going to nursery. And it was really interesting, actually, because the lady who showed around the nursery went, we have them on sat at little tables so that it's like they're a family, because for some of them, that's the only time they get to sit and have a meal like a family, because they're here 5 days a week. And that was it. I was like, that was the worst sales pitch ever. I mean, bless her little cotton socks, but I was like, that was it. I was totally switched off. There was no way this was happening. So I then had to look at a kind of different way. My husband was in the online world supporting people from a lead generation kind of scenario. To me, the online world, I wasn't that keen on Facebook. I used to go on, I had an account, but I wasn't that keen. In fact, one of my friends originally wrote on my Facebook, welcome to the 21st century was I think what we put, because it was just not my thing. To me, it seemed very much like the Wild West in comparison to the pharmaceutical industry. People were making all these claims, and I was like, where are the papers? Where's the evidence? And my husband was like, it's not quite how it works here so much. And so I found that quite amazing. But what really stuck out to me was the fact that there were so many people who were really, really good at what they do, but what they do isn't the sales and marketing. And they were like a best kept secret. And you do not want to be a best kept secret when it comes to your customer base. And so many people that I was sort of ended up sort of having conversations with and getting to know, they were frustrated at how competitors were just going in there and just, taking over markets and segments of markets because they had good marketing. And because they were confident to promote themselves. And I was like, you know what, I could really help these guys with their sales. And that's kind of where everything stemmed from, was, okay, well, these people need help with their sales and their sales conversations. That kind of evolved to actually, in reality, if you haven't got decent people on those sales calls, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to convert them into paying customers, or you don't want to convert them into paying customers because they're not right clients for you. And so it was then looking at further along and the sort of beginning of that customer journey and the relationship and the targeting they were doing. And that's what I started to work with people on. So I ended up setting up my business on maternity leave. Babies nap a lot, and there's not a lot of thought process behind keeping a child alive, really, other than that feeding and the hours. They're not talking. There's nothing that they're not there, are they? I mean, you're waiting for them to smile. And so I set that up on my first maternity leave. The plan was to have children as quickly as possible. 3 of them as quick as possible, maybe 4 as quick as possible. I did tap out at my third, but I resigned from my job whilst I was pregnant with my second, whilst I was still on maternity leave with my first. And then that's it. Then my career's been I've been managing babies, managing business, and so I have been so aware of that stop-start. You get the ball rolling, you get momentum behind your business, and then you go off and you have another baby, and then that all dwindles off, and then you come back and then you pick it up again. And then I decided to have another one, and then lockdown happened. So that was all going on at the same time, and that's when I wrote my book. And then I again came back again, but I was like, my third one, I was like, I'm done and dusted. He is a definite full stop. But yeah, it all kind of stemmed from me wanting, like, I think it's like something like 76% of women set up their own businesses because they want that freedom and flexibility. Potentially not for children, but just because I think we end up with more commitments outside of the workplace. And we'd like to have that sense of freedom and being able to manage things a bit more on our own terms. And so, that was where I came to it from. I'd had businesses on the side. So I'd been running businesses whilst doing my sales job. My husband had been more involved with them. But yeah, it was that my motivation was the freedom and flexibility, being there for my children. And that is still, despite people's comments sometimes over my level of commitment, that is still where my priorities are. My business is there. Could it grow quicker? Absolutely. Could I make more money? Definitely. But that wasn't the plan. That isn't the plan right now. And so that's what it's doing a lot better than I needed it to do. But my aim at the moment is to have that structure, so that I can be there for my family and enjoy being around them. That's why I had them. So.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true what you said about women and commitments. We have so many, right? And it's not just children, it's, aging parents, it's, and not just ours. What if we have a partner? Somehow we end up looking after theirs as well. And if there's, whatever extras need to be done for anyone, we end up doing. And so having the flexibility and then you add on top of that, the time you take off from jobs to have children, or the time you take off, if you're in menopause, like myself, what you go through, they're finding a lot of women now are leaving their jobs in menopause because they just can't do it all. They can't deal with deal with the aging parents, deal with the, kids still at home, all those things. And we're losing all of that,
That talent.
that talent
Yeah.
in corporate, which is fine. We can all do our own thing, go do your own thing. But if we're leaving and not having something else to go to that is for us and allows us to still maintain a life, really. Because if you leave your job and then what do you do? Right. But you can't do it all. You really can't do it all. And so save yourself before you get to that point.
Well, I think the thing is like my ethos on things is always like, you can. And the thing is like you can have what's important to you. You might not be able to have it all at the same time. And actually, like I did in my podcast, I did a really good interview with a lady who was saying about how actually it's living to your values, and the stress and the overwhelm comes when actually it's not the things that are really important to you that you're actually doing right now. And so, and that can vary by person. Like there's so many different things that may be by a priority to you, but it's understanding this is my priority, this is what I'm doing. And I find myself getting out of balance. I'm heading into the school holidays. I was like, oh, if I put them in kids clubs, then I could be doing more work, because you know that just before a break that's coming up, things will kick off, you'll get more momentum, there'll be more opportunities opening up, and you're really excited. And that's the thing is being able to work for yourself and do your specialism, work in your zone of genius. It's really enjoyable. But then it's easy to get out of kilter and be like, actually, I'm chasing that, and actually this is what, and so you have to kind of then rein yourself in a little bit.
Yes. The shiny object syndrome, we call it. And yeah, especially as an entrepreneur, because you tend to be somewhat creative, right? You want to do new things and try new things, and then everybody is telling you something different. Oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. And you feel like you have to do all the things, and you don't. Trust me, I did it that way. It just ends you up in the hospital. So you choose the one thing, and move forward. And once
do
that's
really well with it. Yeah.
fully, then maybe we can add another thing. Yes.
Yeah, most definitely.
Absolutely. And so in being home with your family, you said we were just chatting before we started, and you said your son is learning to read. So how many years have you been working on your business solely? Like that's your sole income for yourself?
So my daughter's 7. So just so yeah, she was 7 in April. So yeah, about is around this time. So yeah. It's it was that really, I remember I had I don't do all that much in-person networking. I tend to do a lot of stuff, a lot of my connections online. But I did have a networking event that I was going to, and I'd worked out that morning that I'd actually gone beyond with my income, the income that I needed to replace my wage. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, and it was a really weird feeling, because I always thought I'd be very much celebrating it. And I was really impressed with myself, but also I felt like that safety blanket had gone. Because I was like, actually, my thought process was always, if it all else fails, I'll go back to my corporate job. And then I was like, but I'd have to take a pay cut to go back to my corporate job. And then that's when I was like, and I wouldn't want to do that. And so that's it really, isn't it? And so, yeah, that was one of those kind of, key moments where I was like, that realization, it was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And those first few years, and having the marketing and sales background, I'm sure helped a lot. But those first few years when you're building your business, knowing that, we were often comparing it to our corporate job or what we did before. And it's like, well, can I give that up? Can I not give it up? And is there a point, like, I'm not a wait till you match your income. I'm a jump and do it all right now kind of person. So I'm not the best person to ask probably. What is your take on when to leave that?
Oh, that's a good one. So I work with quite a lot of people who are starting a business in different formats. And I'm always say to them that it's very much personal choice, because some people like yourself are motivated by flying by the seat of your pants a bit more, and that pressure. They need the pressure, because if they have the pressure, they'll do the work and they know themselves. And then you've got the flip side of that with some people that will put them into freeze mode and they will do nothing. And so you've really got to understand yourself. Some people, it's again a comfort thing, how comfortable you are with the amount of buffer you do or don't have. So I've worked with people who've wanted 6 months. So they've wanted 6 months in the bank there, either in their business bank or their personal, to cover bills, that so that they could, in theory, not bring in anything for 6 months and they'd still be okay. Again, that is personal preference. It just depends on, a lot of people that I tend to work with are really unhappy in their corporate jobs. And so one of their motivations, the grass is greener, is to start their own business. And absolutely, a lot of the things that you find frustrating in a corporate role are eliminated when you start working for yourself. But then I think, what does swing way into the magnifying glass is yourself and your own kind of pros and cons and areas of development and areas that you find more challenging, and mindset. Mindset is the biggest challenge by far. And I think that can be very much hidden. You can actually be in those kind of corporate roles and it not be that obvious to you. My level, if you were to plot my level of self-awareness, it has grown exponentially since becoming an entrepreneur and working for myself, because all of a sudden what you do is then reflected in your business and you're like, why isn't this going right? And why isn't that going right? And so, there are challenges within working for yourself. And obviously, I would say to people, pros and cons, you've got to face up to the fact that the first sort of 12 to 18 months, potentially, you're going to spend more time doing sales and marketing than you are doing the thing that you want to be delivering. Because you don't have the clients, because you need to generate the clients, so you need to generate that momentum behind your business. And so you're in that position where you are potentially doing something you don't enjoy very much, which I think it's worth it, but then I don't dislike sales and marketing. Whereas if you do, I've had conversations with people where I've said that's the reality, and they've said, you know what, I think I'm happier staying in corporate, which is better than you going out and finding that out and going through all that pain.
Yeah. I just want to loop back to the self-awareness part, because I think this is such an important part
It's
that
massive.
especially women, I'm going to say especially women, but everyone, the amount of self-awareness that you have to work through and grow into, grow into as an entrepreneur is, like you said, it's exponential to what you've done before. And if you're not willing to look at those things, I don't think you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. It is such a big part. I mean, that's a big part of our business mastermind that we have, is that self-awareness work that we do. We do a lot of work on limiting beliefs. We do a lot of work on uncovering what's holding us back, and how we can do things differently, and how we really think about things. And yes, we do marketing, and yes, we do, all the other things to run a business. But the larger part is, how are we thinking about things, right? That mindset part. And it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that when they take either the leap or the very slow crawl towards entrepreneurship, until they're
Absolutely
standing in it and go, now what? Now what? Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I agree with everything you said. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about your book, because I just, got the audio version, which you're going to offer for free. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to tell us a little bit about the book. You said you wrote it during the pandemic, which perfect. I think a lot of people did that, and I've been reading a lot of them. So
well, to be fair, it's a bit like my third son, my third child. I had actually started the book as and also I was already pregnant with my son before lockdown happened. But I'd gone about writing the book in two different ways. So originally I'd set out to record it, as in I transcribed it, which was a really bad idea for me because I elaborate too much. And so I was going off on all sorts of weird and wonderful tangents, and it was an absolute just brain dump of all the information that I had in my head, which, as somebody quite politely put it, that doesn't make good reading. And they're really going to have to persevere with it. And, it's not like, seasons of series is online, with TV programs where you've got to sit through a couple of seasons of bad before it gets better again. They're just going to sack it off. So based on that, I sort of re-looked at it, and I worked with somebody who helped me to structure my thoughts and my key learnings into actual chapters, which worked really nicely. So yeah, so I finished that in the September, August, September, end of August, beginning of September, and then my son was born in the October. So yeah, it came from. It was not something, I've got to admit, because loads of people, and I feel quite bad sometimes because people are like, it's on my bucket list to write a book. It wasn't on my bucket list to write a book. I didn't have this underlying need to make be an author and to sell a book. But I just felt like it was a really good way to get the information out. Sales has a really, really bad rep. I think mainly because we latch our thought process onto the bad experiences we've had, whereas actually we're being sold to all the time. But it's the bad ones that stand out, because the good ones don't stand out because they're so good that they go under that sales radar. And so I wanted people to look at it differently, because sales is different to how people perceive it, with that sleazy, pushy side of stuff. That's when you're being sold to. And that isn't saying, oh, you know what, that means that the rest of the time it's just so good, it's manipulative. It is the fact that it's, at the end of the day, it's a process where somebody helps you to make a decision, an informed decision. And sales has changed a lot. Back in the day, before the internet and the availability of loads of information, the salesperson was the person who really held the information, and then they kind of released to you the bits of information they wanted you to know. Whereas now there is so much information that it's actually overwhelming, and so that salesperson is there to help you sort of sift through and better understand your options and what's best for you. And I always refer to sales as being like dating, in that it is that opportunity for people both to get to know each other. Obviously, if it's a product, it's slightly different, but if it's a service, then that individual is going to have to work with you. And so you want to make sure that they're a good fit for your organization. It's not about, I always say to people, it's not about chasing that transaction, that money. It's about chasing the testimonial. And it's like, when you're talking to that person, it's like, is this person going to give me a good testimonial? Because that money is just where basically it's a bit like rugby when they hand the ball over, and it's like, now it's your turn to deliver on what we've been talking about. I've passed you that baton. I've given you that resource. Now it's time for you to give me yours. And so, that can be an absolute nightmare if you've got the wrong person. And then they're wasting your time, probably keeping you busier than your ideal client, which is stopping you from finding other ideal clients. And that's where your time could have been better spent. So I absolutely get, in the beginning, it is very, very easy to chase the money, particularly if you've done the whole, you know what, I'm just going to quit and get on with it. Then you are chasing the money, and then that can be in a position where you will take on clients that aren't necessarily a good fit. So it's always worth bearing in mind, are they going to give you a good testimonial? Whereas are they going, rather than the transaction? So I wrote the book basically to help people to see sales in a different way, to think about creating more of a toolkit around the way they describe stuff. And that's the thing is I worked with a language team on my placement year. And so a lot of them, they knew English, but they didn't know the technical terms for some of the engineering equipment we were using. And so that got me thinking, actually, that it's actually just finding your way around a new set of words that you don't necessarily use. And that's where that toolkit can come in. So, having that kind of go-to responses, go-to metaphors and references, can help you be more confident putting across the reasons why people might want to work with you, for example. But equally, it's helping you to help determine if that individual is a good fit. So, it is really, it's switching a mindset, but it's also if you can be better supported to come to those calls with resources and an understanding and confidence, then you're much more likely to get a good result and get the sort of clients that you're looking for.
I love that. And I love the name too, selling without sleaze, right? That's what, yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
because I call it manipulative marketing tactics because,
Yeah.
it's what we're used to in our very masculine energy world. And you're right, we're being sold to all the time. And
Yeah.
we also need to sell to keep our business viable. And
Mm.
what we often we get frozen in that, not wanting to sell or not wanting to sell like that. And then but then what do you do differently?
Mm.
And so this is a really good resource for that. And you have offered the audiobook for free. So I'm just going to put the link in the chat, but we'll also put it below afterwards. But for anyone who's watching right now, there's the link for the free audiobook. Um, the page might be a little glitchy.
Yeah.
Sarah's team is working on fixing it, but I did get my copy. So regardless of what it tells you, the copy is coming to you, and it'll be fixed for anyone who's watching it later. And I have a feeling this is going to be one of those books where, yeah, you'll listen to it, really good information, and then you'll want a copy of the hard
Mm.
copy because then you're like, I need to like have this little Bible beside me of terminology and things to know and things to
Well,
reference.
to be fair, you've got, so at the end of each chapter, you've got worksheets that you can download and they're accessible. You literally just click on the link and pop your email address in and it sends you them. So that was designed so that you can kind of take that information and rather than writing the book, which apparently lots of people don't like to do, is to have those sheets. So that, well, the thing is once you've written it, once if you change your idea or you're going for a different business, it's written there then, isn't it? And so you can have worksheets, so you can print them out or use them however you want. But the idea is I'm a big fan of taking action. You can learn all the things. A lot of the time, it's not about learning the things; it's about implementing what's already there and implementing with confidence. And that was the kind of the plan with the book was to help you have that confidence and clarity to do that implementation.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you. And thank you for being here today. Is there any final thoughts before we go today? Anything that you had a burning desire to share before we go?
I think just the fact of doing it your way and what you said before around there are so many different ways to grow a business. There are. The best thing you can do, obviously I'm going to say this as a business mentor, but the best thing you can do is to get help with it. Find somebody that you like, that aligns with you, that isn't doing any weird and wonderful marketing techniques that you wouldn't feel comfortable doing, because at the end of the day, that's what they're going to end up teaching you. A lot of the time is I do this and this has worked for me. So look at people, think, actually, do I like what they do? Do I like what they stand for? And if they do, if you like them, then start following them. When you can, and that's the thing is sometimes people aren't in a financial position, but there's a lot of free resources that most people provide that you can start to take action on. You don't get that individual feedback on things, which can help you feel more confident, etc. But it's a starting point. But to feel like you can do it alone is a bit like thinking that you can have kids and you'll kind of wing it and know what you're doing. We all need guidance on stuff that's new. You are really good at what you do, which is what you're delivering. But that doesn't mean that you're good at the marketing and the sales and the finance and all the tech and all the creativity and all the content and everything else that's involved in running your business. That isn't your future long term, but those are the sorts of hats you're going to have to wear in the short term. And for a lot of people, they want to get out of that startup phase as quickly as possible and get people in who actually know what they're doing. And if that's you, then the quickest way that you can do that is to get help to get you through that process. I'm a bit like everything is a bit like a sticky plaster with me. If I know I'm going to find it difficult, band-aid you lot call it, don't you? And it's like I just want to rip that band-aid off dead quick and get that painful stage out the way. The most painful stage is where you are in a job and you are running your business as a side hustle. I've met people who have been doing that for years. It's exhausting. And so I would encourage you to have a plan, have those goals set out where you're like, you know what, when I earn this financial goal, when I have this in my buffer, I'm going to resign. and stick to it, and have that as a goal and have a plan of how to get there. And if you do find yourself kind of wondering after sort of 6 months or so, then reach out to somebody. I am more than happy to chat with people and point them in the right direction. If that direction is not me, then I will let you know and I will point you in the direction of who could be. But yeah, don't battle on alone. There's so much talent out there that isn't getting seen, purely because they haven't got the supporting roles of their business set up and there to get them moving. So get on that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I think that's such an important part. And I wish I had done that in the beginning instead of trying to figure it all out myself. And so, yeah, absolute excellent advice. And again, thank you for being here today, sharing
You're
your wisdom.
welcome.
And we'll have all the links below on how to find you. And I've already got your link for the free audio book as well up, but it'll also be added in the description below. So thank you for watching today. And if you're a woman interested in aligning your heart-centered business with your ethics, values, and life goals, join our Aligned Business Building Mastermind. For accountability, like-minded women who come together as business colleagues and friends to share the journey with you in community, resources and trainings, and so much more. And you can get 90% off your first 30 days. And with the coupon code aligned90, and we will have that link below as well after we're done. So thank you, Sarah.
You are very welcome.
Stop button for YouTube. Apologies. I'm pushing it. It's not doing anything.
Oh no. It just wants us to stay on. That's what it is.
That's what it is. It just wants us to keep going. And it's going to show me a bigger version of ourselves, and that's not helpful. I need it to stop.